take a holiday? Hello everyone, I'm Sarah from Everyday Starlet. Welcome to my channel. I make videos to inspire you to be the star of your own life. I'm continuing my Masculine Feminine Energies film breakdown series with the Audrey Hepburn classic Roman Holiday. If you're not familiar with what I mean by Masculine and Feminine Energies, I talk about this in most of my videos, but a brief summary. Masculine and Feminine Energies are energies that live within all of us. We all contain both energies, but we all have a core energy that's the energy we are most ourselves in. That energy may link up with our gender or it may not. It very often does. We can be in wounded or healed versions of either of these energies, and all of these energies contain archetypes. We all have all of the archetypes within us, but we're usually comfortable tapping into certain ones more than others. But we can access any of the archetypes whenever we need to. And in order to have sexual polarity in a relationship, you need one partner to be embodying the masculine energy and one partner to be embodying the feminine energy, because opposite energies attract, same energies repel sexually. So let's take a look at the 1953 classic Roman Holiday. I've done breakdowns of several Audrey Hepburn movies on my channel. I have a breakdown of Sabrina, and I also have a breakdown of my favorite Audrey Hepburn movie, Breakfast at Tiffany's. Now with YouTube, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to use actual film clips in this video. Sometimes YouTube lets me, sometimes it doesn't. But either way, I always have little mini film clip breakdowns on my TikTok. So if you want to check those out, you can follow me there. The link is in the description box below. So in Roman Holiday, Audrey Hepburn plays Princess Anne. And the thing about being a princess is her entire life is planned and scheduled to a T. She has to do everything just so, and everything is all planned out for her. Her routine is basically the exact same. She travels, so it varies from day to day, but everything is so structured and planned out for her. So even though she doesn't need to create the structure herself, so she's not specifically going into her masculine energy of having to create the structure because she has people around her who are doing that for her, her feminine energy is not fully allowed to flourish because she's in this very rigid structured mentality and this very rigid structured life. And if someone is feminine at their core, that is going to be so frustrating. So I have several videos talking about all the feminine archetypes. I would say Princess Anne, even though she's a princess, very much has to embody her queen energy, which is a great energy to be in. I mean, she's very regal, she's very poised, she's very composed. She knows her status, she knows her worth. Those are all great characteristics to have, and having that queen energy can be wonderful. But if she never gets to tap into her other feminine archetypes, it can feel very limiting and she can start to feel suppressed, and oftentimes that's gonna come out in other expressions, and it actually does very early on in this movie. In the scene where Princess Anne is being told what her schedule is going to be for the next day, she kind of has this breakdown. She has this absolute temper tantrum, and that can very often happen when the feminine feels like her life force energy, her fullness, her adventure, her experiencing life is being suppressed, is that often will come out in a tantrum-like rage. I'm not justifying that kind of behavior because it's not necessarily a mature way to handle it, but that often happens when you have a feminine being who is being suppressed. She has to be composed. She's not allowed to express her emotions freely, because you notice the minute she starts to express her emotions, she's constantly told to not do that. They call the doctor because they want to sedate her. Like, she's not allowed to express emotions. Those emotions are going to build up within her, and they're going to come out probably, again, aggressively, violently. She's not violent with anyone, but it's a violent rage that comes out because she hasn't been allowed to fully express herself, and she's been suppressing so many parts of herself. And pretty much she's been suppressing everything that isn't the queen energy. She's been suppressing her maiden energy. She's still very young. She's still very youthful. She wants to be playful. She wants to be fun. And I believe some people have conflicting ideas about maiden energy, but I believe that you can be in maiden energy throughout your life. It's that youthful, playful aspect of the feminine that I think is beautiful to have at any stage in your life. But she has that part suppressed. She's not allowed to be fun and playful. She also has a very suppressed lover energy. Like she mentions in the beginning of the movie that, you know, did you know that some people sleep without any nightgown at all? As if like, do you know people sleep naked? That kind of thing. Like, that's sort of this untapped lover energy. She even makes a comment later on in the movie about how she's never been alone with a man with or without her clothes on. Like, she's never actually been allowed to have that. And lover energy isn't just about sex, but it's about that sensuality. She's not allowed to experience that because she's so rigid and structured. And she's also been suppressing her wild woman who wants to just go out in the world and have fun and just experience life and just be free. The wild woman really desires that freedom, that excitement, that adventure, to really experience life to the fullest. So Queen energy is amazing to have, it totally is, but when you only have queen energy, so you're only stuck in this very regal aspect of your personality, but you never get to experience any other types of your personalities. You know, your maiden, your mother, your lover, your wild woman, your wise woman, all these wonderful feminine archetypes, it gets suppressed and then it tends to build up, and that's where you end up getting anger, resentment, things like that that come up. So to calm Princess Anne down, her doctor gives her a shot that's supposed to be like a experimental sleeping medication. It doesn't kick in right away, so she decides to sneak out and run away. But while she's out, that's when the sleeping medication kicks in. She ends up falling asleep on a park bench. And she gets discovered by Joe Bradley, who's played by Gregory Peck. Joe is a reporter, and he doesn't realize at first who she is. He basically just sees this poor young girl who is stranded on a park bench and wants to help her. Joe's character is pretty bland throughout this movie, but I do think that you do see that need to, he doesn't know this girl, and it's this need to protect her and to help her. He's very gentlemanly. He never takes advantage of her because she's falling asleep, or he tries to put her in a cab and send her home, and she's really not coherent, and he ends up in an argument with the cab driver. He ends up taking her back to his apartment, but he treats her very respectfully. She's gonna change her clothes in front of him, and he decides to go out for coffee. Like, he's being very respectful. He's not taking advantage of her until he realizes who she is. And because he's a news reporter, he thinks he can get a really big scoop on the princess because he has the princess basically in his care. So he essentially takes her around Rome on an adventure so that she gets to experience Rome, with this idea in the back of his head that he's going to be selling the story of the princess's day out in Rome with him as a big exclusive, and he's gonna make all this money. There's an interesting conversation where they're talking about what they're gonna do today, and she's talking about all of the wonderful things that she wants to do and experience in life, which is very much feminine energy. She wants to experience life. She wants to get gelato and go to a cafe and sip champagne, and she wants to do all of these things, and that's very much feminine energy. The feminine wants to experience life. The masculine wants to pursue his purpose. The fact that the masculine says he's gonna do these things with her, and she's like, well, don't you have to work? And he's like, well, I'd rather do them with you, and he basically decides to spend time with her, except that what he's actually doing is his work. She doesn't know that, but he's focused on doing these things with her because that's his job. So even though he is manipulating her to get a story, it's his job, it's his work. And so you see, like, she really just wants to enjoy the day. She wants to have champagne because she wants to celebrate her freedom and she wants to celebrate life. He's doing these things with her, but in reality, he's really pursuing his purpose. He has a goal, he has a vision, he has direction. It happens to be being playful and having fun with her, even though she doesn't know that, but it really does show the difference between, you know, the feminine having this need to just like experience life, whereas the masculine has this need to pursue a purpose and to have a direction. So of course in the process it wouldn't be a Hollywood movie if the two of them didn't start to fall in love. The scene where he's dropping her off is actually, it's really poignant because I think it goes to show, like, she doesn't want to leave. She knows she has to leave, but she doesn't want to leave. And I think it goes to show a really significant part of the masculine feminine dynamics is the feminine is always either opening or closing. Kind of like a flower, like, is it safe to open or does she feel like she has to shut down? The masculine is always either moving closer or further away, depending on whether or not he feels like it's safe to continue a relationship or it's safe to leave. Which is why the feminine, and it's the feminine in all of us, but especially in feminine cord beings, leaving a relationship is really like a last ditch effort. And even when the feminine knows that a relationship needs to end for whatever reason, I mean, it could be something horrific or it could just be because it just has to end for circumstances, she's going to want to hold on. It's really difficult for somebody in their feminine energy to walk away from a relationship. Whereas with the masculine, it is usually easier to walk away from a situation because the masculine is always desiring freedom. So if he feels confined in a relationship or like a relationship isn't working towards his best interests or towards his higher purpose or his higher calling, he likely will end up leaving the relationship because his passion and purpose is always his #1 priority. Whereas with the feminine, love is always her #1 priority, so she's much more likely to feel a desire to stay because walking away from love is so against what her core values are. Whereas with the masculine, with his core values being his passion and purpose, it's easier for him to walk away from a situation that isn't aligned with his passion and purpose. And that's not to say that the feminine can't walk away, and it's not to say that the masculine always just has an easy time walking away, because we all contain both energies, so it can be very difficult for either person to walk away, or can be really easy for some people to just walk away. But if you're operating in your feminine, it's much more likely that you're going to want to stay. You just may shut down, but you're likely going to stay in the relationship. Whereas with the masculine, you're more likely to leave right away and not actually take the time to figure out if you can open the relationship or if the relationship can be improved. You're more likely to leave without actually giving it a full chance. And it's interesting at the end when Princess Anne realizes that Joe is with the press and she sees him at this press conference that she's doing. They ask her about the friendship among nations, and she basically starts talking about the friendship among people. And it's interesting because the feminine will always choose people over ideologies or concepts. She almost always connects with people and with humankind and humanity and the love between people and individuals, as opposed to these grander concepts or bigger ideas. Is the feminine always really craves that connection, that love and connection. And of course they ask her which is her favorite city that she's visited, and you know, she's supposed to say that they're all wonderful in their own way and this and that, and she's being told what to say, but she ends up breaking down and saying Rome. Rome will always have a special place in my heart, and that's because she spent her time in Rome with someone that she loves. And that's part of the concept of the feminine. It's like, it doesn't really matter necessarily where she is. If she's in love, game over. Like, it's always gonna feel better no matter where she is. She could be in the nicest, most beautiful city in the most beautiful place in the world, but then if she's somewhere else that's just sort of some like plain old place, but she's there with someone she loves, it's always gonna feel better. And I'm not saying that Rome is a plain old place or anything like that, but I'm just saying, like, when you have a princess who travels to all these different exotic places and stays in all these beautiful suites and hotels and has all this luxury around her, the place where she finds love is always gonna feel so much greater and so much better. I found it really interesting that the first time I went to New York City, I was in love, and I was there with a man who I was in love with. This was ages ago, and it had so much energy, and so like it was just like, oh my god, like I was just so intoxicated with the city. And I've been to New York several times since then, and sometimes I have good experiences and sometimes I don't, but nothing will compare to that energy of going there when I was in love. When you're feminine at your core, no matter where you are or what you're doing, if you're in love, everything is going to feel so much better, and it's going to feel luxurious because your heart is open and love is running through you. And so no matter where you are or what you're doing, when you're in love and you're a feminine core being, it's just gonna make everything magical. And you see that so much with Princess Anne, and I think that's one of the beautiful scenes that they have in this movie that shows, yeah, she gets to go to all these places and she's supposed to say that, you know, every place is great in its own right, but when you're in love, everything is just so much better. So if you have any other thoughts on this movie or have any other movie requests, let me know. Leave a comment in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you. I love your suggestions. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please give it a big thumbs up and be sure you subscribe to my channel. If you are a woman who wants to connect with her feminine energy, I have an online course called Feminine Radiance. Details are in the description box below, along with links to all my social media accounts. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you join me next time.